Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm proud to rise and speak in strong support of Bill C-539, an act to promote local foods. I'd like to begin by paying tribute to the energetic and thoughtful work undertaken by my colleague from Beauharnois Salaberry. I'd first like to set the stage with some local context, Mr. Speaker. My riding, Victoria, sits at the tip of an island that is home to nearly 3,000 farms. And with a strong tourism sector, almost 1 in 5 service sector jobs on Vancouver Island are connected directly or indirectly to food. But over the last half century, the balance between locally grown and imported food has tilted dramatically. Once we grew 90% of our food locally, now we import 90%. Partly for that reason, Victoria is at the leading edge of a trend we're seeing in communities across the country and indeed across the world, a growing interest in buying foods that are produced locally. The majority of Canadians who choose to buy local do it to support farmers and as well as their community economy. But they do it for other reasons too. Canadians know that by reducing the distance our food travels means fresher produce in our kitchen, cleaner air in our communities, and fewer climate-changing emissions across Canada. Late last year, I had the pleasure of attending the opening of Victoria Public Market. The market is the fruit of years of work by community activists like my friend Philippe Lucas, who wanted a downtown space to connect local farms with urban residents, and it's been enormously successful. My riding is also home to an innovative community organization called Life Cycles, headed up by the indefatigable and imaginative Jeanette Sheehy. Life Cycles partners with municipal governments and public institutions to give residents the tools and skills they need to grow, prepare, and preserve local food. In backyards across our city, hundreds of volunteers harvest up to 40,000 pounds of fruit, for example, each year. That food is distributed through a network of some 40 agencies, such as food banks and community centers. They also have relationships with businesses, supporting their work through social enterprise initiatives like selling apples to a local cidery, for example. Life Cycles also works with 8 elementary schools to integrate schoolyard vegetable gardens into their curriculum. Through these programs, more than 750 elementary school students each year learn how to grow their own nutritious food right in their backyard. Life Cycles is a perfect example, Mr. Speaker, of the diverse range of benefits we can see in our economy and our communities when we support local agriculture. Elsewhere in British Columbia, I'd like to acknowledge the work of initiatives like Farm to Cafeteria, a not-for-profit agency with a 10-year track record of creating and supporting local food projects in public and private institutions. A provincial program called Buy BC works with industry to highlight local food products. This past weekend, I visited Moss Street Market, one of the remarkable urban neighborhood markets in Victoria. Like the amazing James Bay Market, it is thriving. These neighborhood markets not only provide an important outlet for local farmers, they serve to create something perhaps even more important: community. They create community. They bring neighbors and families together in an outdoor space to mingle and enjoy each other's company. In Victoria, across British Columbia, and across Canada, the trend line is clear. The numbers of farmers' markets has doubled over the past 2 decades, and even though we still buy the majority of our food from grocery chains, collaborative efforts by provinces and industries are promoting local foods that people want. In response, other levels of government have taken action. Municipalities have introduced local procurement programs, and just last year, Ontario and Quebec introduced policies and legislation on local food. Yet, Mr. Speaker, the federal government has no policy to encourage this positive trend, and that is why this bill, C-539, is so essential. I'm proud to support the bill as a member of the only party in this House to demonstrate its commitment to supporting Canadian farmers by promoting local foods. I'd like to acknowledge the work of my colleagues, the member from London Fanshawe and the member from Burnaby New Westminster, who've tabled bills in the last Parliament to give preference to Canadian products in government procurement and provincial transfers. Canadians are making their preference for local foods known in the marketplace. Businesses are adapting. Community organizations like those I've mentioned in Victoria are spreading the social and economic benefits of local agriculture around our communities. Governments at the municipal and provincial level are waking up and noticing. The federal government must too, and show some leadership. This bill provides a roadmap for doing so. Just what would the bill do? Well, first, I think very thoughtfully, it would enable federal and provincial ministers of agriculture to develop a pan-Canadian strategy to define what is local food, something that is not that easy to get your hands around. In some cases it's easy, such as on Vancouver Island where we have definitions by geography. In others it's not so easy, such as, for example, in Ottawa and Gatineau. How do you define local when it crosses provincial borders? How far should the distance be from the marketplace? Those are the sort of things that need to be addressed as job one, and the bill would do just that. And secondly, it would provide for the development of a local foods procurement policy for government institutions. It would task the Minister of Public Works and Government Services to develop such a policy and implement it no later than 1 year after this legislation would come in force. I also want to emphasize that the bill has shown great sensitivity to the division of powers in the Canadian Federation. It would ask the federal government first to consult the provinces and stakeholders such as producers before it introduces this pan-Canadian local food strategy, and develop a policy to encourage government institutions to purchase this food. In other words, the primary goal is to promote locally grown food and support Canadian producers, but always looking out for the division of powers in the Canadian Federation, so we can work together, not at cross purposes. Great care has been given to confirm that such a local food procurement strategy would be consistent with both our internal trade and international trade obligations. And I think that's very, very important. Mr. Speaker, farmers in Canada are often facing a crisis. In my part of the world, the price of land is absolutely enormous, and it's very difficult to encourage young people to go into farming as a result. And not only that, we have a government at the provincial level in our province that has introduced Bill 24 that would appear to be trying to take away the preservation of the agricultural land reserve introduced by a former NDP administration in order to preserve the space and land on which agriculture can take place, which is something that's so vital. And I want to salute the efforts of my colleague, MLA Lana Popham, in trying to address this apparently wrong-headed initiative. But creating market for this product, even when agricultural land is so expensive, and when we have issues such as climate change, which is addressing what can be grown and where it can be grown, these are making it very, very difficult. So we need to provide as much support to our local farmers as we can. And that's what this bill would be all about. The bill reflects the NDP commitment to sustainable development, because when we buy local foods, we reduce transportation, distances, and greenhouse gas emissions that, of course, contribute to the climate crisis that we're facing in Canada today. So, Mr. Speaker, by way of conclusion, this bill is sensitive to federal and provincial concerns. It would take into account consultation with the producers and the provinces and indeed the territories. It would develop a local procurement strategy that would be consistent with our trade agreements. And most of all, it would help sustain something which is so vital, local agriculture, creating community in our country and giving consumers and farmers what we need as we face the future together. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.